Hi guys, welcome back. I opted to do a fourth coat of the gold over just to really clean that up and brighten that up. So we did 4 coats over the black and the white for the gold, and we did 3 coats over the black and the white for the quicksilver. So these are totally dry, and while I have other samples that are sitting aside as well, so I figured at this time, before we clear these, we'll go into what I mentioned earlier about doing an anodized candy effect, creating that anodized candy. So for this, we'll do Carob blue candy. I like blue, and I think it's going to be cool over the gold because it's going to kind of bring it more of like an aqua color, more of a teal color, and over the silver, it's going to obviously look like bright blue. So the trick again for this is to make sure your base coat, in this case the gold or the chrome, again are really, really dry. So overnight is preferred. If you can wait 2 days, like I mentioned earlier, it's even better, just because that continually gets brighter. So dry time is your friend. If you're not sure, wait longer. It's not going to hurt you in the long run. It's going to give you a better result. So real quick off camera, I have mixed up some of our Carob blue candy. So if you guys are familiar with our other candy videos, we have a bunch of them out there. I kind of talk about mixing ratios and application and whatnot. 6-to-1 is typically my go-to, and when I say 6-to-1, I mean 6 parts of our 4050, our UV-LS Gloss 4050, that's our candy carrier, to 1 part candy. But that's kind of my general rule of thumb. For this application, because we're trying to kind of build up a little bit lighter of a coat to create that anodized effect, I wanted a little weaker in terms of the concentration of candy, so I opted to go 8-to-1. And you can go as thin as you want. I mean, in terms of you almost doubling. If 6-to-1 is what I'm saying, you can go 12-to-1. And again, that first number, that's that 12, or in this case the 8, is the 4050, not the candy. So it's 8 parts 4050 to 1 part candy. And once you kind of exceed that 6-to-1, which is again my standard, kind of my benchmark, you might have to add a little bit more reducer, because now you have 6-to-1 typically sprays really well right out of the spray gun without reduction, depending on what you're doing. Smaller gun, you might have to add a splash like 5%, but 6-to-1 kind of sprays really nice without any reduction. But as you start moving away from that concentration of candy and having more 40-50, the 40-50 is thicker than the candy, so you might have to add 5 to 10% reduction depending on what your ratio is. So the same thing, when you mix it up really well, add your reducer, let it sit for about 10-15 minutes before you start to spray, get it loaded. So I have it loaded in my gun, and we're going to go ahead and spray a couple coats. So we'll start with 1 coat on each, and then you guys can see what that looks like. When you're spraying candies, you want to be a nice even overlap, about 75% overlap, and you want to make sure your gun is constantly congruent with the shape that you're spraying, right? So you don't want to spray, if this is like your flat edge, you don't want to spray like this or spray like this. You kind of want to keep it really, really parallel to the surface that you're spraying, because you want that evenness is key. So here we go. This is coat number 1 over the quicksilver that's over black. You don't want to dry spray this. You want just a nice, even, medium wet coat of paint as well. Any kind of stipple is going to be magnified by that chrome. So that's coat number 1. You can see already that looks pretty cool. And that's the reasoning behind going lighter with that concentration. I don't want to darken this right up. You're going to kind of lose that metallic effect. You're going to lose that anodized effect. So even at 8-to-1, I could probably, like I mentioned earlier, step it up and go 12-to-1 to really thin this out and almost just tint it, where, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, maybe 2 coats might be the end for these guys, because I'm really digging how that looks. So over gold, it's going to look totally different. It's going to be cool. You can really see that teal color. We actually have a teal in our line. It's called Tealicious. And this is pretty close to that over this gold. All right, so we're gonna let these dry up. We'll come back and take a look, and we'll probably do 2 coats at least, and we'll see what we got from there. So we'll see you guys in a bit. All right, guys, welcome back. Coat number 1 is totally dry, and I'm actually really digging how that looks. So this over the black silver, and this is over the white silver, and then over the black gold base, and then over the white, the gold. So I really like how that looks. I'm gonna do one more coat just to try to even it out a little bit. There's a few spots you can kind of see the gold through, but that's all I wanna do is just even that out. And again, it kind of points towards really thinning out in terms of the concentration of being able to build up. Because if you go too heavy with this, you're just gonna kind of wash out that metallic anodized look. So 2 coats gonna do it. We're gonna let this dry up, and then when we're done, we'll see you guys after it's dry. Same thing, just nice medium wet, even. More concerned about keeping my color consistent, just kind of that medium wet shine over the surface. That's exactly how I want it to look. Again, I think it's pretty cool. It's a very stark difference you can see over versus the gold versus the silver, especially with this blue. Very cool. All right, that'll do it. We're gonna let these dry up, and we'll see you in a few minutes. All right, everyone, welcome back. Everything's totally dry, completely done. You guys can see the anodized candy in front of me, and I have the raw, the uncandied versions of those, the Quicksilver and the gold over here. And the only thing really left to do to wrap this up is to top coat all these. So we're gonna choose our 4053, our high gloss, our UVLS high gloss 4053, was what we're going to put down over the Quicksilver and the gold. So I went ahead and I mixed that, I kind of pre-mixed it, 10% of our 4011. Again, that is our go-to reducer. I can't stress that enough, and 10% is kind of the general rule of thumb across our entire paint line. So 10% 4011, let it sit for about 15 minutes, mix it up in my LPH 80, ready to spray. It's a 1-2 with the E4 cap. It's a perfect gun to spray something like this size. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then what we'll do for the anodized versions, we're going to go ahead and use a 2K clear coat. The only reason that we're kind of recommending or leaning towards that for the application over candy is to prevent that bleeding. So basically with the 4053 or even our 4050, we have noticed that sometimes it does have a tendency to create kind of a re-wet, and it will kind of, the candy will bleed into that clear because it is kind of a similar material. So in order for like the end all be all in terms of stopping that bleeding, it's not so much that it doesn't have the same shine, but what happens is the candy kind of pulls in, it will kind of hinder the gloss a little bit. You can polish it, but really for that absolute bleed checker to stop that from happening, the 2K clear is kind of the ultimate for that. So we'll do these in 2K and we'll do these in 4053. Because these are metallics, like our pearl colors, you're not dealing with the dye, the bleeding issue. So that's going to be perfect over the top of these. So I'm going to get the booth running. We'll go ahead and spray these guys first, and then we'll spray the anodized version. So stick around, we'll be right back. All right, everyone, welcome back. We are ready to kind of wrap this up. This is the final segment, just kind of the overview. I'll kind of go over a few things real quick. If you remember when we left off, we were doing our 4053 UVLS high gloss over the raw chromes, right? So we did it over the Quicksilver, we did it over the gold. So we have the the Quicksilver over black, and the Quicksilver over white. So it's a difference. It certainly is a difference. You know, it's not super, super in your face, but it's certainly a difference in the finish there. A little more smoky kind of a chrome. This is a little bit brighter. And then we have it over the gold. So there's the gold over the gloss black, the high gloss black, and the high gloss white right here. Again, with the 4053 over the top. 2 coats. Looks really good. Great gloss level. Really nice and clean. So then we'll put these aside here, and we'll move on to our anodized candy. So these, remember, we did a 2K finish. We did a 2K clear coat over the top, just because of the candies, you remember that. So this is the Quicksilver over high gloss white, and this is the Quicksilver over the high gloss black. Same exact thing, right? So we did silver over the 2. Really cool look, really hits the nail on the head in terms of that anodized look. And remember, this was only 2 coats of the Carib Blue, mixed at 8-to-1. So kind of extended out that mixing ratio, because you kind of really want to let the Quicksilver kind of be the star of the show. Really want to let that metallic or that chrome look shine through, and you just kind of want to tint it. You don't want to mute it. If you spray too much candy really fast, it's just going to look like our regular Carib Blue over silver, essentially. So you'll be really wary on your mixing ratios and how you apply it. And then we have the same exact, that's Carib Blue over the gold, right? So we did the gold over black, the high gloss black. We did gold over the high gloss white. And then we did 2 coats of Carib Blue over that. So again, pretty big contrast in terms of the color, right? This is a lot more like the teal because of that gold. So yellow and blue make gold, right? So green. So this is a cool effect, really cool. Same thing, you can see through it. It's the key of kind of creating that metal, that anodized effect. So really cool. Again, the 4053 over these guys and 2K over that. And if you remember, the only reason we recommended a 2K over this is to kind of stop that candy bleeding. So for the candies and you're spraying candy, that's kind of the end-all be-all, where everything else across the board, all of our colors, from our Wickeds all the way up to our Feck colors, the Hot Rod Sparkles, the Cosmics, all that, the 4053 works phenomenal. So I think that wraps this up. One thing I just want to touch on real quick, when you're spraying, I mentioned it earlier, I just want to give a kind of few tips. Again, the star of this video is the high gloss white and the high gloss black. Much easier to use if you're familiar with our old version of the high gloss black. It's a little more forgiving. It's very easy to spray, especially on larger areas. You don't have to dry spray it as much. You could put it on medium wet, just like you would spray a clear coat. If you are going to spray, and this is a big thing, mix what you want to spray for that particular moment. Kind of like essentially like a clear coat. You know, you wouldn't put it down and come back a couple hours later and spray the same clear coat that you mixed. Not that this is going to be catalyzed. It doesn't really get hard per se, but we have noticed the longer you let it sit with the reducer, right? Once it's reduced, the shine will kind of come down a little bit the longer it has to stay. So basically, if you're going to spray what you're going to spray that day, right? So like a 6 to 8 hour kind of time frame, mix it that day. If you put it down and let it sit overnight and come back tomorrow and continue on spraying, you might notice that there is a loss in the gloss level. So just kind of keep that in mind, food for thought, right? So what you're going to spray at that particular moment, mix that and use that. It's not that it goes bad, like I said, but through things that we've done in projects, I have noticed that there's a little bit of loss of gloss if you let it sit overnight or like the next day or especially 2 days. So just food for thought for that. And if you are going to polish, if there's a necessity to polish these, your ground coat, because again, remember when spraying either the Quicksilver or the gold, you really want a nice smooth surface. So the less orange peel, the less any kind of surface imperfection you have, the better this final look is going to be, just because it is that reflective. It's kind of picture like you're trying to create a mirror, right? So you want a nice crisp, flat kind of a reflection. Dry sand the 4050, the gloss black and the gloss white. Do not wet sand them, because you kind of run the risk of kind of a re-wet issue. So dry sand it if you do have to polish it, and try to keep it just to the point where you're spot nibbing, just kind of surface imperfection relief. And remember, when you're spraying that, you kind of want to spray it again like you would the clear coat, nice and even. If you're a little wetter here and a little drier here, you will see that as it dries, right? So where it's wet, it might kind of flow out too much to the point where you could cause kind of a solvent pop, like we talked about too, an over application of our UVLS products. You don't want to just hammer them really on. You just want a nice medium wet, and it's going to flow and level on its own. But don't dry spray it either, because it's not going to basically acclimate. So if you have dry spray, it's going to kind of just continue to stack, kind of like if you're spraying a metallic, you kind of start creating a fuzzy look. So really imperative to be really kind of exacting with your overlap. 50% overlap, nice and even, medium wet, and let each coat really dry thoroughly between coats. And that goes with all of our paints. So I think that wraps this one up. A lot of information, I know, but again, really cool effects you guys can create with our high gloss and our high gloss white and black, and our Quicksilver and our gold products, and our 4053. So for Createx Colors, I'm Chris Arpin. Thanks for checking us out, and we'll see you guys next time.